All right, so hear me out. I think I started a classroom reptile rescue, and it's amazing. I've always been a firm believer in classroom pets because of all the wonderful things that they can bring to kids. But beyond that, we're doing something absolutely incredible for both the animals and the social emotional needs of students, right alongside all of the academic components that we're hitting. So this is Grim. Grim is a rescue bearded dragon who came into my classroom from a previous student's family who had just outgrown him. He was living in a 40-gallon tank, not doing much of anything. The family hadn't done much research, not through any fault of their own, but this guy had not had any live insects to eat. He didn't have the proper lighting. He didn't have the proper heating. He didn't have the proper UVB setup. He didn't have any of that. And I knew nothing about them when we started, but each of those discoveries came from student investigation in meeting with reptile experts that we had met through connecting with local vets, as well as the reptile community at large. And in our research and discovery, our kids were able to take this animal that had spent the last 4 to 5 years living in this little tank, which I know it doesn't seem like it's that little, but this here is this piece here. And so when you see the tank that he's supposed to be in and you can see his size in relation to that tank, it really is a huge difference. But this animal that had lived all of his life in this one tank was now able to live in this one. And our students were able to discover that the colored lights were hurting his eyes, that the UVB wasn't penetrating because of the style of bulbs that they had, that his heat spot wasn't on the right type of setup, that it was on a resin setup that was actually not holding heat the way it should and was actually creating temperatures that were too hot for him, versus what they were able to do when they built him something out of blocks, which actually isn't pictured in this picture, but they got tile connected with another teacher and had the measurements done to have that tile cut exactly to fit in the base of this tank. They built brick pieces to get him the right height and then made it adjustable so that it can go up and down, playing with their measurement skills at the same time as their research and their interviewing skills with talking to people and learning about him in general. The social emotional piece with the creating the responsibility to care for him was huge. And he's not our only friend that's in our classroom, but he does have one thing that I love, probably above some of our other rescues, and that is Grim has been surprisingly, and I wasn't anticipating this, one of the best classroom management tools I could have. I have a boy-heavy class, which is totally amazing, but we're loud and we're mobile. We want to move, we want to wiggle, we do all of that. And when I need some time for us to really just quiet down and focus, all I have to do is let the kids know that Grim wants to come out for a visit. He comes and runs around the room. The kids love it. Nobody gets out of their seat for fear of hurting him or stepping on him. And everybody has not only that in their seat piece, but they've got that quiet piece in hopes that in being quiet, he'll come up and visit with them, which he's become very social and loves to do. The kids have treats that they're able to give him, treats just being insects that they're able to feed him directly. And then in the event of something like a fire drill or other things, we've actually practiced and have a bug out plan for him for how we keep him safe in the event of an emergency like that. So it's pretty cool. On that side. So in addition to those, we ended up with 2 crested geckos, and the crested geckos are pretty amazing. They came to us in a large 40-gallon tank. The family that had them just no longer wanted them. They didn't see them. They're a nocturnal animal, so they weren't very active. They weren't very engaged. And so they didn't necessarily have a proper setup. Again, this is something that our students discovered through research. So you kind of almost think that bigger is better when it comes to a tank. But what we discovered is that because these guys are canopy dwellers, they actually want tall tanks, and it doesn't matter how wide they are because they like to hide. So it's just the height that was the key here. And being in that big long tank was actually detrimental to them. We also discovered that, like most reptiles, they don't like to cohabitate. And so having two of them in the same tank actually was causing both of them to have stress. And one of them was taking over the resources for the other one. And so one of them had metabolic bone disease. And so we were actually doing all the research on the vitamins and supplements to help care for that and how to treat that. And so there's a big size discrepancy between the two of them, despite their age being the same. We were able to determine that one was male and one was female, which is probably the reason that they didn't fight until one had died. But still, just this absolutely incredible piece that these students were able to discern from research between them. And then these two, you'll see the other one here, the little red one. These two actually had never been fed the correct things or fed in the right way. Their food had always been on the bottom of their tank. And so they were really malnourished when they came into us. And so the kids actually get to spoon feed these two. And so they make up the food and one holds them and one holds a spoon. And so you get that really big social emotional connection. And it took some trial and error and actually connecting with a vet to get that suggestion of what could help them. And then they weren't drinking from their water dishes. And so we're actually misting, not just in the top like we used to, but actually soaking down the sides of the tank because these guys are drinking from the side of the tank more often than those other dishes. We were able to order special food dishes that now sit up on the top and give them those pieces that they need. So not only did we end up changing their tank, we changed their food sources. We got them insects that they could hunt, and it's really fun for the kids to watch them to hunt. And they've been able to hold investigations on deciding what type of insects and what type of fruit food these particular guys would like to do. So we're doing a lot of graphing and science-based inquiry in that, in addition to their in-depth research project on the species itself. And the goal is with each of these as they go to build them bioactive tanks down the road. But for now, it's getting their tanks set up in the best way for them with their current situation. So we also have two leopard geckos, and these two little leopard geckos that came to us were also cohabitating in a really small tank. They kind of had a harder situation. We don't know their situation. They came to us based off of people kind of hearing what we were doing in our classroom. And so both of these leopard geckos had previously lost their tails, and we could tell that after meeting with the vet, they were able to show us specifically what had happened there. But they're missing toes because they just weren't kept in the right temperatures. And so they were also kept in such small confines that they had some kind of aggression between each other, and that could be seen in kind of the marks on their bodies. And so the first thing we did was separate them. And when they had first come in, they never came out. We never saw them. They lived literally inside their hides. And so we were able to separate them, put them both in a 40-gallon tank, put a bunch of hides up in the tank, and then slowly wait. And as we waited, they come out. They come out and they explore. They come out and they sit up on top. When the kids come over to the tanks, because we hold them often when we're doing different things, when they come over to the tank, they'll actually come out and get ready to meet with the kids. And so we do, it's like a reptile initiated like holding. So they have to like see if the reptile wants to come and let them pick them up. And these two are really social in that way and really enjoy that. And so it took a while to get there, though. It took getting them into bigger spaces, giving them more hides, and having them rebuild that trust component. And then because they did have the issues with their toes and other things, the kids have learned how to build saunas for them and create these STEM project pieces that help them with the adaptations that they have so that they can shed better and do these other pieces. Here, because they were a male and a female in the same one, when they came to us, she actually laid eggs pretty quickly after coming to us. And we were able to determine pretty quickly that we didn't think they were fertile, but the kids still wanted to build a makeshift incubator, do the research on what it would take to possibly hatch them if they were fertile, and kind of go through that process, which was a really cool in the moment STEM project that we were able to jump into. So this is the tank actually that they that they had initially started in, and it only had one hide when they came to us and a food dish and a water dish. And we knew immediately that wasn't a good thing. So we threw in some extra pieces, and then have built a much bigger tank for each of these guys as they've come into us. Here, Grim, on one of her little adventures around the room, actually had gone over and seen them. Normally, we have our tanks really separated and up on different student-built furniture in the classroom, but in this particular instance, that tank was being rebuilt, and so it was on the ground, and Grim was totally thrown by the idea of another reptile. She actually started to blackbeard underneath, which is kind of a sign from her that she's either upset or angry or something else. And so we immediately picked her up and put her away. But we happened to catch it on a photo. One of the students caught the photo and shared it. So kind of an interesting situation. Anyways, these are a bunch of our tanks that we have that are set up in the classroom, and they're kind of in the process of being worked on. So you can see that the students are fully invested. They've got full research going into what it is that they need for tank setup, for design, for proper husbandry care, and all the pieces that go into caring for their particular animal. So they're divided into teams and they're doing this piece. And it kind of works out in this really beautiful way that in learning the proper husbandry here, they're actually able to take it outside of the classroom and other places and apply it so that hopefully animals are better treated in other situations and we don't end up with them coming like they have to my room where they needed new homes and other pieces. But yeah, the furniture built in the background that they stack on, the kids are currently building 2 more of those. So we'll have one set of tanks for our desert dwellers that are our crepuscular creatures. And then we'll have another set of shelving for our canopy dwellers and our ones that need a misting system. And the kids are currently in the process of putting together a misting system so that system will rain and keep them more moist and wet. They all run on timers that the kids have programmed and set. So the animals all get 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of nighttime. So that 12 hours of heat followed by 12 hours of cooling. And they've had to problem solve as different things have come up so that we can build brackets so that the lights can hang up and what that looks like with measurement, and staying within their budgets for what they have cost-wise for their projects. And then we ended up actually with one last little critter who just came to us. It was in posting about our projects and the things that we were doing that somebody had a green anole that had been abandoned to them, another teacher, who was like, hey, I don't particularly want this thing that happened to come to me, but I couldn't turn it away. And so she brought him into us. And so I have a group of students currently working with him, and we're just now getting to know him. We put him in a bigger, taller tank as well, because he too likes that higher space. He's cool because he changes colors from black to green, and then he also has like this big bulge that'll come out. It has a scientific name, and I'm not sure what it is, but it's this really cool pinkish red piece that comes out. So anyways, this project that I've done, it's this kind of interesting piece that feeds my soul in a beautiful way of rescuing something and bringing it into my room and sharing it with students. I'm a mom of 7. And my household and my home life is very crazy. And so I wouldn't be able to do this particular project of rescuing these animals and building this husbandry and this love for them and this care for them and this design for them in my own home, because we're constantly running to practices and other pieces, and the time wouldn't be there for me to care for them in the proper way. And so I was able to take this thing I really love and am passionate about and want to participate in, and that's rescuing these animals that needed homes and giving them homes and better lives. And I'm able to do that and pair it with my students in the classroom at the same time. It's just something I'm really happy and enjoying, this ability to link reading and writing and math and science and speaking and listening all into one big project that my kids are going further and further into. And it's just hitting their standards and helping them grow in these incredible ways. And the social emotional side of it, where they are learning to care for other things and have responsibility and the executive functioning skills to do all of this, is beautiful. I'd also like to point out, it's probably the first and only time I've been able to successfully have regular conversations about poop in the classroom, because all of my kids keep healthy food and poop charts on all of their animals. And it's probably the most hilarious thing to come in every day and they're checking and marking off and graphing whether or not their animals have used the restroom and what that means about the animal's health, and if it is looking like healthy or unhealthy, and using that to guide them on whether or not their care is correct.